The Pakistan and Afghanistan relationship is at an all-time low. And during this defining moment, the Pakistan government is cracking down on undocumented Afghan refugees. But what about the relationship Pakistan and Afghanistan shared before? Specifically, I'm talking about the Taliban, Pakistan and Taliban. There are approximately 2 million Afghan refugees who are living in Pakistan. It also includes those 6 lakh refugees who came to Pakistan to seek asylum after the Taliban again came to power in 2021. From the perspective of GS Mains Paper Second, it is important to understand the current chain of events and who are the Hazaras, because many Afghan refugees who are being sent back also includes Hazaras. Hazaras fear persecution, although they are Muslim, but they are Shia Muslims. If we talk about Taliban, the Taliban is predominantly Sunni. And that is why they fear persecution. We are going to talk about the origin as well. Also, the strained relationship between Taliban and Pakistan. When Taliban usurped power in 2021, Pakistan policymakers, the government, the officers were jubilant, saying that the Prime Minister of Pakistan back then, Imran Khan, said that the Afghan people are now free from the shackles of slavery. But what about now? What has happened that the dynamic has completely changed? Also, the current status of Afghanistan, the dire state of economy, human rights and women rights. We are going to talk about that as well. What is India's refugee policy? We do not have any legislation. We are not even a signatory to a convention that supports refugee asylum. So what is our policy? We are going to talk about that as well. Do we follow a two-tier system of refugeeship? And what and how does India handle Afghan refugees? We also have Afghan refugees. Our main concern lies with the people of Afghanistan. We love Afghanistan people. Although we do not have a very specified relationship with the Taliban, we know that since from 2001 to 2021, India, invested in Afghanistan for the betterment of the people of Afghanistan, and we are doing it today as well. But our relationship with the Taliban is very vague in nature. We also will give you a question by the end of this particular class, a mains question. In the middle, we have a prelims question. Make sure you comment the correct answer in the comment segment. Let's move ahead and talk about the current chain of events. Also, do not worry about the PDF because it is provided through my Telegram channel. Although you need to attend the class to understand the PDF. If you have any queries, you can talk to me on my Instagram and follow me on my threads. So, as I was saying, that Afghan people who have sought asylum in Pakistan, they are being deported back. There are approximately 2 million Afghan refugees who are residing in Pakistan. It also includes those 6 lakh refugees who came to Pakistan in 2021, since 2021, when Taliban usurped power in Afghanistan. There are Afghan villages in various areas of Pakistan where they also may find undocumented Afghans. That means who have not sought the status of refugee from the government officials of Pakistan. They are being sent back. Although Pakistan government is saying that we are cracking down on all foreign refugees who are undocumented, we are not only specified to Afghan refugees. Moving on. And these are the pictures of the recent times. 2 million Afghan refugees, specifically the Hazaras. They are pretty fearful. What if they go back to Afghanistan? The Talibans are predominantly Sunni. Hazaras are predominantly Shias. And because of this sectarian issue, they have been persecuted earlier as well. Trucks are being filled with Afghan refugees and they are being crossing 2 major border points. They are going back to home. It's not the first time actually where we are seeing such a crisis. The relationship between Taliban and Pakistan has changed a lot for various reasons. Now, these are the pictures that are pretty grim, and it is actually a state or a condition for all countries who do not want undocumented refugees in their own country. So, this is a rubble. This is a rubble of a house where undocumented Afghans were living in Pakistan. As of 2018, Pakistan still was hosting Afghan refugees. As you can see, the status was different. When Afghans come to any country, they have to seek a status from the government of either Pakistan or India, wherever they are going. to get the refugee status. But some of them do not do so. That is why they become undocumented. And whenever there is an undocumentation, citizenship rights and basic rights also are not given. This picture is going to show us where Afghan refugees have been living in different villages in Pakistan. As you can see, on the borders we have few, but on the northern side of Pakistan, a lot of Afghan villages are there. Moving on. As these pictures show the grim reality, the reality is grimmer, trust me. Because it was in 2021 when the Talibs came back to power, when the US withdrew from the war-torn region of Afghanistan. The Talibs came back to power, and people started fearing persecution. The law they impose is not in consonance with the global scenario. And that is why people do not want to live in that situation. Before that also, Afghanistan has been a war-torn country since time immemorial. It is not at war right now within itself, but there are certain militias who are still trying to, evade the Taliban from power. And there might be a civil war if that is not taken care of. A civil war in Afghanistan is not at all good for our country, India. Refugee crises, destabilization, militancy in Kashmir, all this is related to the stability in Central Asia, specifically in countries such as Afghanistan and Pakistan. So it was earlier touted that refugees, after the usurping of power by Taliban, would go to different countries. For Pakistan, it was like 300,000, 3 lakh. But it was double. Since 2021, Pakistan has witnessed at least 6 lakh refugees, undocumented refugees from Afghanistan. Other countries also have refugees such as Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, even India has. But because Afghanistan is having a very narrow border with India, that makes it easier for India to handle refugees. But these countries, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, the problem is if Pakistan is going to do that, all the other countries are also going to push back the Afghan refugees back to Afghanistan, and Afghanistan situation is not very happy right now. Moving on, let's talk about Hazaras, who are fearing that they may be persecuted if they go back to the country. Hazaras are actually Dari speaking people. They belong to the Turk-Mongol race. They claim to be the descendants of Genghis Khan. Also, 20% of the Afghan population seemingly is Hazara. But the Hazaras say that we are approximately 20% to 30%. Because no ethnicity statistic is available for Afghanistan, we cannot say clearly. Official records have said that they are 20%. And they follow, the Hazaras are mostly Shia in their belief, while the Taliban follow Sunni belief system. They are also distinct from the Pashtun-dominated Taliban. Pashtun tribes are different, Hazaras are different. And they have been singled out for their physical features. It's very Mongolian and Turkish, or Turkish we can call it. So from Turkey and from Mongolia, the descendants are Hazaras. So we have to understand that they are different from the Pashtun tribes. Because of their physical features, they have been persecuted in the past. If we talk about Hazaras who were living in Afghanistan, the valleys of central Afghanistan up to about 18th century in the post-Genghis Khan era, this region was dominated by Hazaras, and by the 1700s it came to be known as Hazarajat. Okay, and when Afghan ruler Ahmad Shah Durrani conquered Hazarajat, persecution started. Pashtun Emir Abdul Rahman also ordered the mass execution of Shias, that is the Hazaras and other Shias as well. And the Taliban, as they are Sunni and the emirs have been Sunni, so that makes it possible for them to be persecuted on the basis of sect, 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 because this is a sectarian issue. Moving on. Now let's talk about the relationship between Pakistan and the Taliban. Since the inception of Taliban, Pakistan has been a friend and a patron and a supporter of Taliban. Pakistan, even if we talk about 2021, when the Taliban usurped power in Afghanistan, it was seen as a victory for Pakistan because Pakistan had a lot of hold on the Taliban. Pakistan used to provide them sanctuaries when they had to hide from the US government and also other allied forces. So Pakistan provided safe havens to them. Pakistan funded them. Pakistan provided them all sorts of military help. So this is what the relationship was. I've already told you that when 2021 came, the Taliban got the power in Afghanistan. Imran Khan went out and said, it is the Afghan people who have shed these shackles of slavery. But things changed. How did the things change? First of all, the Taliban now are in power. They rule Afghanistan. So they do not need to be seen as proxies of Pakistan. They do not want to be seen just as a pawn in the entire game. First, that. So that is why they are trying to establish their separate identity from Pakistan. First, that. Another thing is that sometimes reports have come, and these reports were true. Under pressure from America, Pakistan has also arrested and handed over certain Taliban rulers, certain Taliban current ministers to America. And this is considered as betrayal by the Taliban. So, betrayal is in the Pashtun community is an unforgivable crime. And we know what kind of mentality the Taliban and the Pashtun tribe has right now. So, this is the second reason. Taliban actually now does not need sanctuaries. As I told you, safe havens were provided by Pakistan. The Pakistan used to provide them with money, militia, help that could be given in terms of shelter and asylum. Now Taliban doesn't need it. So a separate identity and a sense of betrayal. Both have been one or two of the reasons. There are other reasons as well. When the Taliban came back to power, it was expected of Pakistan by the Taliban that Pakistan is going to coax the West. China was already in their pockets through Pakistan. But they thought that Pakistan is going to coax the West in order to give recognition to Taliban. The West was already not giving proper acknowledgement to Pakistan for supporting the militancy. So Pakistan couldn't do its part. Pakistan couldn't coax the West to give recognition to the Taliban. First, that. Then, the biggest issue right now is the Pakistan Taliban. The Pakistan Taliban is not in good terms with the government of Pakistan. Of course, it wants to have their own rule because the Pashtun tribes are a major factor in the relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan. They live near the border areas, and the Pakistan Taliban has been conducting attacks on various areas. So it was expected by Pakistan that Taliban will get the Pakistan Taliban little relaxed, little calmed down and in reins. But that also did not happen. The Afghanistan-Pakistan border is another issue. You know that the Durand Line was actually not supposed to be a international border which could divide Afghanistan and Pakistan. It was just a buffer that was created when the British started to fear Russian invasion. It was never supposed to be an international line. And that is why certain posts are there still. In Torkham Post, we recently read that fires were exchanged between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Why? Because this is a Pashtun dominated region. Pashtun tribes live on either side of the border. And because of the to and fro migration of Pakistan and Afghanistan Pashtun tribes, a lot of skirmishes happen. Pakistan sees it as a violation of boundary. And the Pashtun tribes do not consider geopolitical divides. It doesn't consider political divides as in Pashtun tribe in itself is a country. They think it like that. Their sense of nationhood lies in the tribal identity. That is why it is really, really impossible to make sure that the Pashtun tribes do not cross the borders. That is another challenge. Now, there have also been suspicion over Pakistan by the Taliban. Last year, Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri, he was killed by the US drones. And according to Taliban, they think that from the Pakistani bases, American drones are working. The Indian angle is also there. Mullah Omar's son Mullah Omar, who was the founder of Taliban, Mullah Omar's son, Mullah Yaqub, he's a minister in the current Taliban government. He expressed a willingness to send Afghan personnel to India for military training, saying that his government would not have any sort of issue with this. So the Indian angle is also there. Let's move on and talk about the dire situation of women's rights in Afghanistan under the Taliban rule. First, they have already, as soon as they came into power, they already banned education for girls beyond the 6th grade. In December 2022, they also banned women from attending universities. Around 80% of girls and young women of school age are not in education. They have been banned from working in non-governmental institutions such as the UN as well. Also, they have been ordered that the entire country of Afghanistan has been ordered to not open salons, to close down all the salons so that women cannot beautify themselves. Then women's participation in the labor force has dropped by 25% if we compare the period August 2021 and March 2023. This has also impacted the economy because economy was being led by women as well in Afghanistan. Afghan economy has contracted by 30 to 40% since the Taliban takeover. This is according to the UN. The UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan says, although there is a significant fall in violence against civilians since the peak of conflict in 2016, there are attacks that are being conducted on former Afghan government ministers, government officials, senior or security official, prisoner, women and journalists. Also, according to the ACE-led, civilians have been targeted by both the Taliban and rebel groups who are working there, such as National Resistance Front. This front is against the Taliban. And the Taliban, when they raid villages, they also have suspicion that civilians are providing asylum to the National Resistance Front. So what happens? Both these groups are attacking civilians from the similar perspective. Now this is a prelims question. I will also continue with India's refugee policy. Do not go anywhere. When was the Durand Agreement signed? Tell me. 1879, 1893, 94, 1881. Tell me in the comment segment. See, our movement towards the refugee policy is based on executive direction. Why? Because we are not a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention. We do not have any domestic law that tells us about refugees, as in how to provide them rights, how to provide them protection, what kind of rights we can give them, nothing. So whatever policy we do have, it is according to the political will of the ruling government. Keep that in mind. And the Foreigners Act of 1946 talks about dealing with foreigners who are also refugees. So it conflates asylum seekers with foreigners who voluntarily enter India. Asylum seekers, they have push factors from their country. It could be crises from climate, crises from persecution. So Afghan refugees who may come because of the 2021 usurping of power by the Taliban, they are not coming in voluntarily, they are coming involuntarily. So this Foreigners Act is putting the asylum seekers and the foreigners who enter at their own will at the same pedestal. And in India, not only from Afghanistan but China, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, we have 290,000 refugees. That is 290,000 refugees and asylum seekers. And our policies are different. As in, if we talk about Tibetan refugees who have been persecuted in China, when they seek asylum in India, they are given registration certificates, they are routinely offered other support. But when it comes to Rohingya refugees from Myanmar, they face severe discrimination and oftentimes they are detained and deported. So we do not have a uniform policy. For our Afghans, for Afghan refugees, we have a different policy. As I told you, since 2001 to 2021, India has had invested in development projects in hospitals, schools, and every sort of project that could help in humanitarian aid for the people of Afghanistan. So, refugees from non-neighboring countries in India, for example, Afghanistan, it's not an immediate, it has a very small border with India. So for Afghanistan, the approach of our policy is very different. How? They have to first of all go to the UNHR office in New Delhi. and they will be provided the UN refugee card. UN refugee card is very important. Why? In order to get, shelter, in order to get basic education or employment opportunity, it is important. Okay. The government then can issue residential permits on the basis of this. And political instability in Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion 1979 was the first phase when we saw refugee crises. Also, the first Taliban regime, when it came to power in 1996, that was the second phase. So we have had Afghan refugees in India. And the first naturalization of Afghan refugees took place only by the year 2006, when 13 Afghan refugees were given citizenship on the basis of naturalization. 12 of them were Hindus and one was Sikh. Okay, keep that in mind. And according to the UNHCR data, there are currently more than 19,000 Afghan refugees in India. It excludes those 13,000 Afghan students who have been stuck in India since 2021. 2021 has been a watershed. India, of course, announced that we are going to give emergency visas for Afghan refugees, but they had to apply. First of all, that not every refugee, they had to apply properly. And this emergency visa was for only 6 months. And many rights which are given to asylum seekers in different countries were not given. There were approximately 60,000 applications by September 2021. But for that year, only 200 e-visas had been granted by December that year. So our motto for G20 presidency was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. This was our motto. And that means the world is one family. But because we do not have a consistent policy for refugees, comes my next question for mains. India's refugee policy challenges the theme of India's G20 under India's presidency. India's refugee policy challenges the theme of G20 under India's presidency. Comment in 250 words, okay? If you're interested, you can definitely write to me on Telegram and I will evaluate your copies. Thank you so much for watching.